I'd like to call to order the Clarkston Independence District Library Board of Trustees meeting for April 15th at 6:32. Let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Here.
Allison McDevitt is absent. Nancy Moon.
Here.
Alan Cantor.
Here.
Brianna Pomeroy.
Here.
Maggie Sam. Here.
Okay. I'll accept a motion for approval of the agenda.
I'll move. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion is carried. Now is the moment for the call to the public. I think the public is out enjoying the sunlight. I'll accept a motion for the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. There are 7 items. Does anyone wish to question any one of them? If not, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, Friends of the Library report.
Hello. We had a very productive meeting on April 11th. Our bank balance as it stands in April is $63,978.12. Our encumbered funds are $36,734.15, which leaves $27,243.97 as our available balance. Our year-to-date sales of the lobby are $629.02. And then we had a proposal by Marion, who's our membership chair, and she wants to kind of get a proposal together to maintain and retain members at large on the board. And so we're going to have further discussion on that. But we want to add 1 more member at large and 1 high school or college student, which I think is a good idea to get some younger blood on there, and they can kind of learn the ropes of the board. And they will have full voting rights for both positions. And both, tentatively we have said 1-year terms, but they can be extended. And then Jim thinks that we should, which I think is a good idea as well, that the new people will shadow each one of the positions on the board to find out what it entails. And so they can find out the orientation and, functions and how it all works. And then, of course, we had a big discussion on our book sale, which is coming up April 23rd to the 27th. And we seem to be doing well for the volunteers. So everything looks like it's pretty shipshape for that.
Excellent.
Very
We're
good.
looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have I sit on a different board, and there is a youth advisory council that serves the board, and 1 member of that youth advisory sits on the board proper, a little like you're doing, but having that youth advisory, if there's more, if you find you have a lot of enthusiasm. So it was a really wonderful situation, and we get a lot of good ideas, and it's a youth-oriented organization, so it's really great.
He's kind of looking toward the NHS, National Honor Society, at the high school level, or someone enrolled in college. But I think it's a wonderful idea.
Mm-hmm.
I do too.
Because young people have a lot of good ideas.
Very much so.
Okay, excellent. How about library statistics?
All right, so this is a statistical report from February. Now, you'll notice in January, we had an issue in the percent change from 2023. I think there's something wrong with the formulas in that, but if you look at February, you'll see that visitors are up 28% from last year, computer users are up 47%. Installations were down 3%, but downloads were up 79%. So apparently we're shifting from one reading style to another, which is legitimate. I suppose information questions up 51%. Wireless users are holding pretty steady at about 2%, but things are looking good. We're seeing good growth.
Okay. Next, the library director's report.
At the March meeting, the library board approved an updated employee handbook, core policies, holidays, standard of dress, child leave, and references were approved as previously written, with the understanding that further review and updating of these policies will be taken and recommended revisions will be brought back to the board for approval at a later date. The library's leadership team have each selected a policy to work on, and additional members will be added to each subcommittee as needed. The goal is to have each of these policies returned to the board by the end of the year. So I just want to give you an update on where we go with those. If any board members would like to be part of those subcommittees, just let us know. The Independence Township Board has the appointment of Tim Holcomb to the library board as an agenda item on their meeting tomorrow night, so April 16th, and I will be attending this meeting along with Tim. He should be joining us next month. The Library of Michigan is an excellent resource to support both libraries and trustees in Michigan. There are 3 upcoming 2-part webinar training for library trustees. Trustee Training 101, the basics, is June 17th. From 6 to 8 p.m. It's an introductory training intended to provide a foundation in the basics of trustee authority, duty, responsibility, and library establishment. The intent is to provide foundational information that trustees can build on through subsequent training opportunities and discussion with their library director, cooperative director, and each other. And then Trustee Training 102, the advanced trustees, is June 24th from 6 to 8 p.m. This is a continuation of training that focuses on more challenging areas of trustee service, such as financial responsibilities, constitutional requirements, intellectual freedom, and tips for building the most important relationship the board has, which is with the library director. These trainings are provided periodically and are sometimes offered virtually and other times in person in a variety of locations across the state. So this one is very timely as Tim is coming onto the board, so we'll make sure he knows about this. And I didn't want to put it in writing because I'm not certain, but I believe that if you miss it, they do send you out a recording as well so that you can watch it after the fact. But it is an interactive. Even the virtual one is interactive, so you can ask questions if you the library will be closed on Friday, May 10th for an all-staff training day. Because we are working on strategic planning, the theme of this training will be community. We will turn our staff outward with sessions to orient us to the organizations, services, and culture of Independence Township and Clarkston. As part of this day, we are excited to have staff select one of 2 field trips in the afternoon that include a visit to the Clarkston Family Farm, or a tour of the original Little White House Library building and 2 beautiful historic homes in the historic district. We are grateful to Chelsea O'Brien, Nancy Moon, Maggie Sands, and Union Joints for their support and assistance with this creative and engaging learning opportunity for our staff. They are very excited, by the way. So, anything with field trip, that's great. We are also very excited to announce that the CIDL volunteer Beth Nelson will receive the Adult Youth Volunteer of the Year Award at the Clarkston Community Awards breakfast on Wednesday, May 8th. Congratulations, Beth.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Excellent. Okay, on to regular business. Strategic plan update.
So our meeting is a little late tonight, but it's a great opportunity for updates without being too long-winded, so that's good. So in your packet, you have the strategic planning process timeline. So I'm just going to go through that really quickly and let you know where we are, what has been done so far. So the first thing is that planning team kickoff meeting. That took place on Monday, February 12th. The next is the community engagement subcommittee meeting. That took place on February 20th. The data gathering, that's February and March. And then the library strategic capacity assessment. That's that survey that went out to the staff and the board, and that was due by March 23rd. And they have compiled all of that information. The planning team had a meeting on April 9th. And then the leadership team retreat is April 17th. And that's when we're going to go over that strategic capacity assessment. And that's the leadership team, and that strategic planning committee is also invited to that meeting if they would like to come.
And what date is that?
That's April 17th.
Okay.
That's Wednesday.
Yes, it's Wednesday.
Coming right up.
Coming right up, yes.
3 to 5, I
3 to
think.
5, yes, 3 to 5. The community survey, that's in the works right now, so we're actually writing that survey right now. We are planning on putting that out mid-May, and our original thinking was it would go May until the end of June. But we are in discussions right now about perhaps letting it go to just past July 4th so that we can use the July 4th as a last little push to hand out little bookmarks with QR codes on them to get a few more people to fill it out just before the end, because there's so many people that come to that
Do it at
parade.
the parade, yeah.
Yeah, so we're trying to decide, is that too long and people will be sick of hearing about it by then? Or will we maybe scoop up some people that were so busy in June as school was letting out and that? So we're tentatively planning to go through July 4th.
I think it's great. I think you might actually hit people that you don't know.
That's what we're hoping, yeah, that's what we're hoping. And then the community needs assessment, focus groups, and interviews. The interviews, which are virtual, are taking place in April and May, and then the focus groups will take place on May 8th and 9th, and that's when Cindy, who is our engagement subcommittee leader from the consultants, she will actually be here. So those will be physical in person, and they will take place on May 8th and 9th. So we are moving right along. We are in a really good place. Amanda, who's our main consultant, is really pleased with our progress. We've been right on top of all of our deadlines. She built in some little cushion spaces, and we have, so far, knock on wood, we have not needed them. We've been able to keep up with the pace.
Okay.
And thank you to Sissy, who's doing a great job. She's really taking a great leadership role. She couldn't be here this evening, but I promised not to give away all of her best stuff. So when she comes to visit you the next time, she'll have even more fun things to tell you.
Excellent. Okay. EV charging stations.
All right, well, this one, I'm going to suggest that you table. I put it on here because I was really hoping that I would have the quote from Oak Electric in time for the meeting tonight, and I did not get it. So hopefully next month, but I wanted to put it on there just in case it would come in at the 11th hour, and it did not.
By the way, there was quite a long article in the Detroit Free Press about how to put in all the charging stations so that people's main concern about charging away from their home could be addressed.
Oh, okay.
And so they were talking about the speed at which some of these changes are taking place, the speed at which things can be recharged, maybe in 60 minutes, whatever, which when we're talking about if you're going to be working in the library, that would be a better
Right.
situation.
Yeah.
So the Free Press had a pretty extensive article on it this last week.
Oh, good.
So looks like everyone is considering that now, because most people are not really going to want to have an EV unless they can charge it easily.
Well, Nancy and I had a great meeting with Jeremy Zinn from Oak Electric, and he was very interested in the possibility of doing that consulting work for us, but he didn't have that quote pulled together.
Okay.
So we'll give him a little more time.
How many stations are we gonna have, 2?
One station that would have 2 ports.
Okay.
And then we're hopeful that we could set it up in a way that it would be easy to add additional stations as needed, but we would start with one. It's Bowman Chevrolet that was willing to give us the station. But the part that we're struggling with is working with DTE and who's gonna pay for what, and so anyway.
Yeah.
Basically, DTE
They're
said,
not
you need to
cheap.
talk to your electricien, but we don't technically have an electrician because we haven't completely committed to doing this until we know what we're getting into financially. So that's hence the request for a consultant to assist us with this whole negotiation.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's always in the details.
It's in the
Giving.
Okay, how about the Public Library Association Conference
All right,
Report?
so I'm going to give you a little rundown. You were all nice enough to send me on a state, not real far on state, but far enough, for a trip down to Columbus, which I worked in Ohio for several years, so kind of my old stomping grounds. I used to work at the Putnam County District Library, so it was nice to kind of pop through and see some of my coworkers from the past. So PLA, the Public Library Association Conference, was April 3rd through 5th, and it was at the Columbus Convention Center. I went April 3rd and 4th, so I went Wednesday and Thursday, and then Neil Parr did go Thursday and Friday. So this is just the things that I saw and the things that I did, and it's just kind of a highlights reel of things that I thought were, that you might find interesting. So the first thing that I really enjoyed was the keynote speaker, Shola Richards, was the speaker, very energetic, and he talked about Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. And I thought this was really timely given our strategic planning, given the fact that in 2023 we were very focused on team building and working together. And he wrote the book Go Together and also Making Work Work. His proverb that he sort of based his conversation on was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so I found what he said very inspiring. The nice thing is that he has a lovely TED Talk, which I think we will be using at our all-staff training day, sort of as our keynote speaker. We can't afford to bring in Shola, but we will be using his TED Talk to help us with this particular concept at that on that day. So some of the sessions that I went to Breaking Barriers, Engaging Immigrants and Building More Inclusive Communities. These were actionable ideas and strategies for developing and sustaining relationships with immigrant communities through needs assessment and partnerships with a wide variety of organizations. And this was also very timely because through our strategic planning, we wanted to make sure that we were reaching out to those English as a second language folks and making sure that we were finding them where they are and folding them in. We do know that our communities, 6% of our community speaks Spanish. And so we want to make sure that we are including them in these conversations. So this was a really helpful session, and I was glad that I took the time to go to this one. Embrace flexibility, create a radically welcoming work environment. This was the Jefferson County Public Library System's pilot program to create a more equitable work environment that is focused on staff needs as well as the organization's needs. This was really interesting. They were doing this, Jefferson County is a large library system, and we are a single building. The really interesting thing is that a lot of the things that they were trying to do on large scale were things we do on small scale. A lot of things like making it possible for people to do their webinars at home where it's a more quieter work environment, allowing people to shift their schedule slightly in order to hit an appointment in the morning and work later into the evening. Instead of having a strict rotation of weekend shifts, we assume everybody here is adults, and we put out there, these are the shifts that we need to fill, and people choose the shifts that they are most likely to be available for, instead of setting people on a set schedule and then having to rotate around. It was interesting hearing the way that they were trying to implement this on an extremely large scale. Because we're small, it's a little bit easier for us to do that because we can all kind of talk about things. But I also got some additional great ideas of things that we could try. I don't want to tip my hand too much because I want to talk to the department heads about it before we try anything new. But just some really good ideas how to create that flexibility that people are looking for. It is hard to do in our situation because a lot of people want to do work from home. You hear these corporations that people don't necessarily want to work in person. We're an in-person operation, so that there's a little bit of difficulty with we can't be entirely work from home, but we can come up with ways to create some flexibility for people, and that's what this was all about. Conducting diversity audits of fairy tale collections and beyond. This one was fascinating. So this was a discussion of the methodologies for conducting collections audits that focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it's basically what they did was they used one branch library's fairy tale collection to review the process, discuss the results, and consider next steps to assure an authoritative, balanced collection. So the whole idea of librarianship is that we try to create this balanced collection and make sure that everyone is represented, and that we have a little bit on all of the religions and a little bit on both sides of various topics and that kind of thing. But when you do this, you're building your collection as you go, and it is a little bit controlled by what publishers publish. So you'll find that publishers get into sort of a trend, and they'll publish lots and lots of books on the same topic, and they're all well reviewed, and so you start to put those into your collection, and you have to really watch to make sure you don't end up with too much of one thing and not enough of another. So this was, and we often will audit our collection, and a lot of times we do it in sections. But this particular team of young librarians specifically did fairy tales, and the reason was because, this was fascinating, the reason was because a lot of fairy tales, because they're retellings, are often told by folks who maybe that's not their background. They've done a lot of research and before they write a fairy tale, but they may not be representative of the culture that the story is actually about. And so that's what these folks were studying, was looking at it and making sure that if it was a Native American tale, that the person who actually wrote the story was authoritative in their telling, or was this just a retelling of the story where somebody maybe traveled somewhere and was so inspired by the culture that they wrote their own version of something. And so it was really interesting to see them sort of look at this in a new way. And it was fascinating, sort of the scientific methodology that they used to do this. So it was a really interesting bit of research, and it was inspiring to see these young librarians look at something with fresh eyes. So it was a good one.
It's an excellent choice of subject.
It was.
Yes.
Well, and they were trying to do this in a new way, and they wanted to pick a collection that was small enough. Because it was a branch library, it was a small branch library, and the entire collection was only 200 books. And so it was reachable in terms of the sort of going through this whole process, and they were talking about maybe some fresh ways to look at the authority of books, and I thought that was really, really interesting. We See You, Programming for Adults with Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. These were practical strategies and tools for developing inclusive programming for adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, known as IDD. We already do inclusion crew and programs that are for youth that have various special needs, but we don't have as much for adults. And so this was a really great program that I went to and gathered some information that I will share with the adult services staff. Very inspiring, and the woman who did the presentation was very dynamic and had a lot of great ideas. Lots of good suggestions for how to connect with various organizations in the community that can help you. And then I also spent some time in the vendor area. It was a huge vendor area. There were 7,500 attendees. This was not the biggest PLA, but it was a nice big one. It doesn't come to this part of the country real often. So the vendors that I went to see, obviously I went through the whole vendor area, but these are the vendors that I actually spent time really talking to. I talked to Sensource. Sensource is a company that specifically does people counters, and they do a people counting system that allows you to put people counters to provide anonymity of your patrons, but make sure that you can count when they're coming in and when they're going out, and you can put sensors in various areas to find out which areas are being used. But while still protecting the privacy of your patrons. So we could feasibly put one on the museum and see how many people are going in and out of the museum, or various areas, meeting room doors, things like that, that would help count people for programming. We know this many people went in through this door at a particular time. It would help some of those bigger events. So I looked into that. Reader Zone, which is another one of the apps that you can use for summer reading. We use Beanstack. But it was suggested that I might want to look at Reader Zone, so I stopped and talked to that vendor for a while. And then Recollect. Recollect is a piece of software that is designed, we have our historic district website, and that is the walking tour of all the historic homes in downtown. We also have a collection of newspapers that are scanned. We have a collection of yearbooks. And then the museum has collections of artifacts and photos and things like this. Recollect is a piece of software that is designed to upload those things and make them easily searchable in a web-based database format. So while our historic district tour is a lovely thing for seeing these various places, it's just a website database. It's not really designed for the level of searchability you want for OCR searching of, say, the Clarkston News, or even of the yearbooks. So I stopped to talk to these folks. We've been using OCHR, Oakland County Historical Resources. That group has been doing shared server storage of a lot of those kinds of artifacts. The problem with that is that it's been sort of these libraries doing it independently, and the software that we're using is not dynamic or robust enough to do what we needed to do. And so it looks like that group might be disbanding, and so I'm looking for other options. But I'm also talking to some other libraries in the area that might be willing to group up with us to consider price and some shared pricing. So, but I had a really great conversation with them, and we will be looking at a demo of that and how that would then attach to the Historic District website that we already have in order to make additional pieces of it.
Julie, are you meeting with Tony Smith on that software and talking that through?
we've talked about it a number of times. I think she may not be super excited about it, but I'm hoping that if we jump into it, that that once she sees how great it is, I'm going to ask her to come to the demo. I know that one of the things is that she's trying to get a lot of things sort of accessioned and scanned before she does that. The thing that's really interesting about this particular software that makes it different than what she uses or what we use through OCHR is that usually museums are looking for a revenue stream for some of the things they have, usually photos. And we've had this conversation in OCHR. It was really a struggle because the Pioneer History Museum in Pontiac did not ever want to join OCHR because they wanted a paywall so that they could sell the photos. Completely understandable. This software has the ability to do that, where it's searchable so you can see what's out there. But then there's a way that it keeps you from printing it, and then you need to go through that paywall in order to purchase that photo. But it makes it possible for people to find it. The problem that we have right now is that those things exist and they're scanned and they're being stored, but you have to go through a human in order to know what's actually been kept. That makes a huge amount of work for the humans that are responsible for the collection. So this would be a great way for people to be able to be self-directed in their searching, potentially buy some of the mainstream stuff quite easily and quickly. And then if they want something more sophisticated or something more commercially designed, then they could have a conversation with somebody at the museum in order to do that. So I think it has a lot of potential. It may be bigger than what she'll be excited about, though, but I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
that can come.
Sometimes they make the resolution on those photos and things such that they wouldn't be, it wouldn't be something you print off and take
Yep.
for free. I
Absolutely.
know watermarks, you can be pretty tricky and get rid of
Yep.
those, but sometimes if you have bad resolution, that's a good way to go.
Yeah, and this particular software is designed to be able to do that, whereas some of the other ones are really designed for you to search for things and print them out, because libraries want to share, but the museums need that revenue stream as well, and we don't want to prevent them from being able to do that, but at the same time, we want people to know what exists. So we're trying to find that happy place, and that's what Recollect is trying to do, is create that happy place between library goals and museum goals. So.
Excellent. Sounds like a good use of your day.
It was a good couple of days. I squeezed a lot in. Actually, there were more sessions that I went to than just these, but these were the highlight ones, the ones I thought you'd find most interesting. I also went to some, what a library might call dull but worthy, important stuff, but I won't bore you with the details of those things. So, any questions about any of that?
No.
Did Neil go to different areas?
Neil went to different kinds of things. It was interesting because we both said that the best stuff that I wanted to see was on Wednesday, and that Thursday was a little bit lighter, so Thursday was a good day to go talk to the vendors. He came on Thursday and he said his best stuff was on Friday, and Thursday was the day that he also went to talk to the vendors. So something happened on Thursday. I'm not sure if it was just the things, not things that we needed or whatever, but Thursday was vendor day for both of us.
Okay.
And then Wednesday was my mostly sessions, and Friday was his mostly sessions. So, and a lot of networking also was great on
Actually, that probably was designed that way on purpose, because,
non-conflict time.
yes, and people are going to typically stay at least 2 days.
Yep.
A lot of people are going to stay 3 days. If that middle day, not much is going on,
Yeah.
they're still getting people at the beginning and the end, and so there's a lot of action.
Absolutely. They did have a little bit of trouble with some of their keynotes. They had a keynote that ended up getting sick, and they brought in a different keynote and whatever.
That's
But
always-
that kind of thing happens. You just never
Yeah.
you never know what that's going to be like. But the keynote that was on Wednesday, he was great, and was really excited about him. So,
Terrific.
Excellent.
Yeah.
it was a good event.
So good use of that
Yes,
program
indeed, I think so.
and that part of the budget.
Yes. And pretty economical. So.
All right. Were there any comments or questions? Okay. In that case, I will accept a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, we are adjourned at 7:02. Thank you very much, everyone.